Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the SuzetteSpeaks show. We have wonderful guests from the legal realm today talking about estates and trusts. And most importantly, from the headlines, we are going to be talking about Chadwick Boseman. As you may recall, the Black Panther himself, the icon actor extraordinaire, passed away in the summer of 2020. And just last month, here in 2022, his estate, his inheritance, his belongings, his assets were just settled. That means we just found out recently who gets what. And why is that? Well, unfortunately, when Chadwick Boseman passed away, rest in power, he did not have a will. So tonight, my special guest, Miss Sandy B. Law, is going to help us through a legal lens understand what it means to not have a will when you must decide where someone's assets will go. That is called a probate. If you never heard of that term, don't worry, we're going to break it down for you. When a judge or a court says who gets what after someone passes. So we're going to use him as a case study tonight. And hopefully, as we do on the Suzette Speaks show, we will educate, uplift, and inspire you while we do. But before I bring up Miss Sandy B. Law, please go ahead and hit the like button. If you're watching on Facebook, welcome. If you're watching on the Suzette Speaks show YouTube channel, welcome. You know what to do. Hit the like button, y'all. I'm really excited to take up this topic. You know, every now and then we touch on legal topics. We definitely talk about current events, also pop culture and things that we can learn from. And tonight, like I said, this is even though it's a legal based topic, we will not be rendering any legal advice. Sandy B. Law is going to be here for informational purposes only. We're just going to have a discussion. But if you do have a legal issue where you need an estate lawyer, someone to help you after someone you loved has passed away, you need to contact someone directly. Here on YouTube, we cannot give legal advice specifically to you. So if you need help, call an attorney for a one-on-one consultation. That way they can hear what's going on in your life specifically, and then they can advise you. But this is only for informational and educational purposes. Please use discretion as to what we say. So as I said, special guest YouTuber, Sandy B. Law. You've seen her on this show before. She has her own channel as well as she co-hosts Learn Biz, the podcast, right? She talks business, entrepreneurship, where people can go to get resources. And I love her interviews because they're so educational as to an entrepreneur's path, right? The highs, the lows, the ups, the downs, the challenges, the part of the iceberg we don't see, right? And she's really great at what she does. And she's also an attorney in real life like me. But as I said, we are here just for entertainment and discussion purposes only tonight. Let me say hello in the chat. Welcome once again. If you're watching again on YouTube, hit the like button. I hope you may decide to stay. If you found me recently, subscribe. We have wonderful shows here, wonderful elevating discussion. So I hope you guys are going to enjoy tonight's topic. But before we get started, let's say hello. Hey, RM. Nice to see you, my love. One of my fantastic moderators. Great to see you. Sugar Girls. Hey there. Nice to have you. Brooklyn in the house, says Andrew. Nice to see you. Welcome. Sunrise all the way from Cali. Great to have you here. Mr. Andrew Walker says, my butt is getting a living trust. There's so many ways we can prepare you guys. And typically, especially in communities of color, we don't do a great job of preparing our families, preparing ourselves for what is an inevitable transition that we all must take. So even though that's a little bit morbid, we're going to keep it light. We're going to keep you laughing. But we're going to be discussing, like I said, how difficult it can be sometimes when a person dies without a will. So again, we're going to use the great Chadwick Boseman as our muse today to give you guys some great information about what you need to know when it's your time to prepare for your family, when it's your time to plan, right? A lot of Black folks would say we don't want to plan because we don't want to call nothing down on us. We don't want to bring that type of energy. That's not what y'all doing. That's not what we're doing. It is so important now to think about what may happen in the future. And like I said, this specific case with Chadwick Boseman's estate took from 2020 till now, almost 2 years to decide. So we're going to speak with an expert again. sharing with us her expertise in estates and trust. Basically, estate planning is when you plan for what will happen to your stuff, right? We're going to use a little legalese tonight, but we're going to break it all the way down. If you're ready for her, let me know, drop a comment, and please welcome my guest. I can't wait for you guys to have her. If you have not been over in this channel, this is your first time, welcome again. Hit the like button as I welcome my guest tonight, Miss Sandy B. Law. Hey, Sandy, how are you?
Hey there, Suzette. Thank you so much for having me on again. This is
I,
fun.
I love it. I'm so excited to have you. Like, I want to be formal, but I don't want to be too formal because we know each other in real life. I think you brought some people with you. Veronica Pieces, Veronica
Hey.
Teresa, supporting my girl Sandy and empowerment. Let's go. Nice to have you. Andrew says 1 ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Absolutely. Glad to have you. Maggie, the substitute teacher. Been busy, love. I've been checking out your pictures of your after when you're cooking. Go check out Maggie's channel. She's an amazing home chef. Like I'm really inspired every time I go over there. But good to see you. I'm back from my dance party. Don't tell all my business. Actually, Sandy B, we're coming straight off of holiday weekend. It was July 4th. I did kick it. Y'all see, I got a little tan on me. Sandy was like, "You look tan." I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah." I did a little outdoor activities this July 4th here in Miami. How was your July 4th? Did you do anything?
I had a great time. I spent the day on the beach with my girls and we just hung out and enjoyed that ocean breeze, and it was a great time.
Ooh, yeah, the relax, relate, release. It's a beautiful thing. That's why we live here, even though it's so darn expensive. It's a beautiful thing to kind of have the ocean right there.
Right.
And we get to enjoy it. So wonderful that you got out and kind of hung out. Hey, Big Bad Bull, nice to have you. Glad you are here coming through. Yeah, so we're gonna get right to it. Sandy B, tell us more about yourself and the type of law you practice.
So I am an estate planning attorney by day. I handle estate planning, probate, and guardianship matters throughout the state. And I have been doing this for about almost 7 years now. Just celebrated my firm's 5 year anniversary. So having a good time really learning more about
Whoop,
myself and my
whoop.
practice.
Yay, that's wonderful.
And right now, the goal is to really dig into this education piece. I'm an educator by background. I was a public school teacher. I also came from the nonprofit world, so I did a lot of community education. And so this is right in my lane, talking about things that are happening in the legal profession, but giving a twist of on the education, because many times people just don't understand the basic concepts. I'm the auntie to a 15-year-old autistic teen. So I do a lot of work in the autism community, which is the reason for my Sandy B Law channel, so that I can share more information about autism in our community in particular. And I just really love to work in our community and try to uplift us and make sure that we understand some of the things that we traditionally have been underrepresented in, especially when it comes to wills and trusts. So that's what I'm here to talk about
Let's
today.
go. I love it. Beauty and brains. Let's make it happen. Miss Sean Denise in the building. Hey, sis. She says,
Hey,
shout out to Suzette Speaks and Sandy with the flames. Yes. Hey, Reese. From Philly, the Red Dragon. Nice to have. I always say dragon. You know how that goes. I love
right.
having you. And again, this is an open platform, open discussion. And I want you to get to know Sandy B. She has a wonderful channel. Go ahead and please subscribe to both her channels, Sandy B Law, as well as Learn Biz, no spaces, Learn Biz, all together, the podcast. And I think it's a wonderful show I've been on. Hey, I'm just, not biased, but if you're an entrepreneur or if you want to learn more about business as a whole, that's the channel for you. They do a great job breaking everything down, from the nuts and bolts, not the pretty picture, right? Just the nuts and bolts
Oh,
of what it
yes.
takes to own your own business and really plunge into entrepreneurship. So we are going to start with what is a probate? I think that is a term that's thrown around. I had a neighbor recently had his mom passed away suddenly, sick, went in the hospital, didn't come out. And he was just like, I need a real estate attorney. And I'm like, nope, you need a probate attorney. And he's like, no, no, no. I want to deal with the house. I need a real estate attorney. And I could not convince him for the life of me, like, nope, you need a probate attorney. And I this was my bad. I eventually was like, all right, my cousin is a real estate attorney. Let me give you his number, because I knew my cousin was going to give him the probate attorney anyway, because you have to do certain things in order. Now, again, we are going to be talking law. Hey, Troy, nice to have you. Again, make sure you go subscribe to Learn Biz, the podcast, and make sure you also subscribe to Sandy B Law. She has dropped a hello, and you'll be able to find her on YouTube, both ways. So hit the like button, show some love, please. And again, tonight's topic is the Chadwick Boseman estate. We have had a 2-year wait. Just last month it was settled. As a I was trying to, in my introduction, not to use too much legal terms, but you can't help it sometime.
Right.
And I want to welcome you, and again, welcome to the illustrious Sandy B Law. So again, I always want to let you know, don't take what we say here as legal advice. This is not legal advice. It's just for discussion purposes, right? You must contact, especially if you're in another state, an attorney in your own state, so that you can get legal advice that fits your individual circumstances. This is for entertainment and discussion purposes only, right? So we're going to talk a little probate, but you got to understand this is just for education, right? None of this is
Right.
intended as legal advice. Discretion is advice. Okay, I'm ready for my disclaimers. Done. Okay, cool. So we were going to get to the definition of probate. Go ahead, Sandy B.
So probate is basically a court process. And what people don't understand about the probate court process is that it determines who is to receive your assets, whatever it is that you have in your estate upon your death. And if you have a will, it gives us some support. If you have no will, we have to follow what the state law is. So probate is a court process. The court seeks to appoint someone as a representative, or if you qualify in your state for a special process, which might be called like a summary or short administration, you might be able to do basically filing paperwork with the court and then having everything distributed. One of the big things about the probate court process is understanding that we don't control the process. A will provides some control to the process, or the state law tells us what we're going to do in the process. So it makes a huge difference if you understand that having your documents in place is giving you the opportunity to have a say in the process, right? If you don't have documents in place, if you don't have your affairs in order, then someone else is going to make the decision for you. And that could very well be decisions that you did not anticipate or even want. So that's probate in a nutshell. It's a court process, allows us to take whatever it is that you own on the day of your death and transfer it to the appropriate people. And all in the process, we're identifying, who your family is. We're identifying if you have any creditors, and we're trying to figure out an inventory to see what assets you have in that process. Suzette, I think you're on mute.
First of all, I love it. I'm talking to myself. I was just going to ask you a little bit more about this process called probate, because I think, as again, just an educational forum that we're having tonight, so that people can understand what happens when you pass. There is a process, as Sandy just described, of determining who gets what's left, who gets your assets, right? It sounds bad if I'm saying who gets what's left, but the real thing I realized is, and I just want to point out, is that many of us in the African American and other, what they call it, there's so many words for people of color, but we don't think we have anything, Sandy B.
Right.
This is the biggest misnomer at all. And by the way, this is what I was saying when I was muted. Go back and watch the show Sandy B did with me as to what happens to your assets. And we were talking about when the late Kevin Samuels passed away. That was an incredible show. She did some great foundational work, and I think it would actually go really well with what we're going to be discussing tonight. So we talked about, again, it was like Kevin Samuels' assets upon his passing, based on like right after we did that, probably like a week after he passed, rest in power. So that was a great show. Sandy B did some excellent tutorial there in terms of explaining. That's what we're doing tonight, explanations of what some of this stuff means. So as we go a little deeper, as we talk about Chadwick Boseman, well, we want to know a little bit more about what triggers probate, and what is the most interesting thing about him is he did not have a will.
Correct.
So as you just said, wills are important because it makes sure your desires, right? You're giving directions as to who gets what, and there is no question. But if there is no will in operation, meaning one does not exist, there are a lot more possibilities, let's just say. So talk about the triggering of a probate. Does everybody have to, when they pass, does all their assets always go through a probate? Just talk a little bit more about when this occurs typically.
So the big thing with understanding probate is understanding what is a probate asset versus a non-probate asset.
Okay.
A probate asset is anything that you have in your name only on your date of death.
Mm.
So when you think about what you own, if you have property, whether it be your homestead property, if you're here in Florida or certain states that accept homestead protections, whether you have rental property, if you have money in the bank, if you have investment accounts, vehicles, 401k, pension, all of those things. All of those are your assets. Whether it's probate or not is based on if it's in your name only on your date of death and nothing else applies. So we talk about, and I'm going to do some legalese a little bit. We talk about things passing according to a will, and then we talk about things passing under operation of law. So if there's a law that applies to the transfer of whatever it is that you own, we follow that. If there is no law that applies and you don't have a will, we follow the state law. And if you have a will, we follow your instructions. And I'm going to say something important. If you have a properly prepared and executed will, because we're going to get into what happens when, even when you have a will and that doesn't work.
Yes, let me slow you down just a little bit because this is a question again. Thank you, Miss AKA lady. She's listening very intently and she's saying, you said have a say. When the will
Yes.
means you have a say. Words matter, right? And so can a will be overwritten? And I was referring to what Sandy B. Law is saying right now. Oftentimes we think we have a will, but there is an operation of law, basically written in your state, wherever anyone here resides. There is a law, basically rules of the government that tell you what has to be done in the signing of, or the word we use as attorney, in the execution of the will to
Yeah.
make it valid. So in Florida, we have rules. I think you need two witnesses. Is it Sandy?
Two witnesses and a
I'm thinking
notary.
back from law school. I can't remember all the rules, but two witnesses, all kinds of rules that tell you when a will is valid. But oftentimes people want to sign a piece of paper at, from the Office Depot aisle
Mhm.
3, but they're not following the directions of what law in their state prescribes as making a will valid. So
Right.
we want to, again, be very careful. You have to find out in your own state from a lawyer where you live if you have individual questions about executing a will. We're just going to speak in generalities right now because like we both practice law in Florida. So there are rules. You can go to the Florida statutes, right? Are
Right.
basically like our constitution for the state of Florida, and they'll tell you exactly, did this occur? A, B, C, D, E had to occur for the will to be valid. What happens is a lot of time people leave out C and D or A, and therefore you have a question about the will. So that's again where a court comes in. So thank you, Sandy B, for bringing that up, and Miss AKA Lady for asking your question. Again, we're talking about the Chadwick Boseman estate. We're going to keep it light, but we got to do a little work. The attorneys, the lady lawyers are in the building. We're going to talk about what is probate. Sandy B. Law from her own channel, as well as the co-host of Learn Biz, the podcast, has given us an overview. Basically, probate is what happens to your assets after you pass. Where do they go? Who do they go to? Right? First way we determine that is there a will, a properly executed will, should I say, that
Yes.
was following the rules of your state, right? The laws of your state. So there's always that question: was it executed properly according to state law? All right. So as you are explaining, Sandy B, you can, does a family have to take it to court to sign paperwork for the probate to begin? Do judges automatically know from a death record, okay, someone died, we're starting a probate? How is a probate usually initiated?
So typically, a family member comes along and says, my loved one passed away. What do I do? Because I need to get access to certain things. Example, a common thing that I see is there's money in the bank, no one else is listed on the account, and there's no beneficiary designation on the account, which means we need some paperwork from a court that says this person is authorized to remove these funds from this account. Now, what tends to happen is if there are multiple family members and there's no will, you may have a conflict as to who is entitled to those monies, who is going to actually petition the court because someone has to pay for that process, and who is allowed to receive from those monies when they are released by the court. So it's typically a family member. It's typically someone who has an interest in whatever funds remain. And oftentimes there are some question marks about who is the proper heir or beneficiary to those funds or to that property or to that investment account. And that's where I believe it was Miss AKA lady asking about, can you kind of set aside? I've seen a number of instances, my own personal cases, where there was a will. And unfortunately, because of a deficiency in the will, because somebody was contesting whether the will was properly done, somebody was contesting the capacity of the person who prepared the will, someone was contesting whether somebody manipulated the preparer of the will. So there's like a whole bunch of different things that can kind of set aside.
You can
Yep.
challenge. You can be like, the person was not in their right mind, and I can prove it
Correct.
when they signed that will. Or I have two wills. I signed one in 2000 and I signed one in 2005. Hit the like button. We doing work, y'all. Y'all have to pay for this type of this energy right here that we giving you. This is definitely billable energy. You're welcome. But we're doing this tonight just as education and a discussion on the real life issues that many people have when it comes to losing a loved one. Rest in peace to Chadwick Boseman. And we're going to, again, we're not going to get too far in the weeds. We're going to kind of open up the discussion again as to why people need a probate. So Sandy B, let me just be very clear. No matter what state you live in, most likely does everyone who has passed away have to have their assets probated?
So it really depends. I would say in general, there are possibilities where people will have a will and not have anything that needs to be done aside from distributing personal items, which usually doesn't go through the court process.
Right.
So it depends.
That's your jacket, your favorite hat.
Yes.
Your favorite, maybe, I don't know, sneakers or something like this. The dress shoes that granddaddy loved.
Yes.
Think about that kind of stuff. Yeah.
It depends on what kind of assets you have and whether or not you need some documentation to show that you have authority to get access. The will is only instructions. It does not transfer the ownership interest in any property aside from personal property, like furniture, household goods,
Lamps.
Sometimes jewelry, lamps, all the stuff that was in the house, for example.
So Miss AKA lady, to answer this question, this is, again, it depends. But wills do not grant legal right. Right. So it can give you the instructions, but that's not the piece of paper that by law mandates that person gets, this person inherits their car or their bank account or whatever monies they had in stocks, etc. So you have to have usually a court order to tell the bank, to tell the stockbroker, to tell people, and that's what you usually get from a probate. So I'm going to answer that question as it depends, and you would have to give me the exact scenario so that we can understand the difference of the scenarios. Are like that nuance is ever so close. Right. But yes, you want to have a will, give the instruction at least, but that does not preclude you necessarily having to go through a probate, because everybody needs that court order after someone passes, especially if there are, as you call them, assets that are probated involved, right? So you just can't go get the car because the will said go get the car. You can't do that. You have to be careful because you want to transfer title properly and make sure the court backs up that you should have gotten that car, right? So again, if you have a legal question and you want to speak to an attorney, you can call Sandy if you're in Florida. When it comes to issues of probate, when it comes to what they call estates, basically same thing, property law, transferal of property, you want to speak to a competent attorney where you live. Again, tonight is not intended for any type of legal advice specific to anyone. This is a general discussion for educational purposes only. All right. So as we talk about probate, as we get more into it, educating our viewers tonight, Sandy B. So let's talk about the process, because I think a lot of people don't understand what it is that people mean by probate. So we know it's where the transfer, but what does that, the transfer of assets occurs after someone has passed away. But what is exactly are some of the steps? Again, it can vary from state to state, guys. We both practice in Florida, but make sure A, you have a will. B, the will is executed by law correctly, because it probably can be challenged if it was not. Right. So those are, again, that's a broad brush stroke. If you have something specific as far as your specific circumstances, you definitely have to speak with somebody one-on-one. So let's talk about the actual probate process. And can you break down what happens during a probate?
So let's start with the first step. Somebody passes away. you have to start to figure out what they had. Um, so I will always say you need to start doing an inventory of whatever that person owned to try to figure out if there are any creditors, and then identify who the family members are that would even be involved in the conversation. So once you've identified some of those basics, you want to connect with an attorney in your state, in the county where the person passed away. Generally speaking, once someone passes away and then you get the death certificate will tell you what was their county of residence at the time of their death. And that county is where you need to seek out the probate court process. But it's helpful to you to sit down with an attorney, even if you don't hire someone. Let's say you have a probate process that's for a small estate, which may not require an attorney, but you at least want to get some guidance so you can understand. Sit down with someone and have a consultation. So the beginning part of the probate process is someone has to petition the court. And once the family has decided who is going to actually complete that process of the petitioning the court and who is going to represent the estate and handle the final affairs. I'll give you the Chadwick Boseman situation. So in his instance, he obviously had parents and he had siblings, but he was married when he passed away. So generally speaking, the logical person would be the surviving spouse. They would be the one to petition the court. They would likely be the one to be receiving whatever's coming from the estate, unless there's a will that gives some other direction. So, and I'm giving you general ideas here. No matter what state you're in, there's going to have to be a petition to the court. How that petition is done depends on whether or not you have a formal estate administration or what's called a summary or smaller estate administration. That all depends on what you have in the estate. So if you have real estate, for example, and you have investment accounts or you have financial accounts, you might need to be in a formal administration. If you just have a piece of property, and let's say you're in Florida and it's your homestead, you may qualify for what's called a summary administration. You petition the court, and then once you've submitted all the paperwork, your attorney is going to prepare whatever the orders are. And each county in every state has their own processes. So if you're in Florida and we have however many counties we have in Florida, you may have a slightly different process in every county that you're in.
Yeah, bro.
However, everywhere you go in terms of the United States for probate, you're generally going to see a lot of the same process.
Wow, doing work over here. Sandy B. Law, breaking down some of the legal terms that you will hear. Administration, meaning the probate is moving along, basically, and the judge has been presented with the evidence so that he or she can make a judgment as to who gets what, right? That's the administration. That's that kind of breakdown of that word. So it depends on, it sounds like, Sandy B, how much your property is valued or your probate assets, not your personal items that don't really have to be probated, but speaking generally, in Florida law, our probate has two. A top tier basically got more money and bottom tier got less money, basically. I don't want to say it like that, but so you have summary. Basically, that person didn't have a lot of assets, so to speak, to transfer. So you can do it a cheaper. Basically, it costs you less too, and it's less items. And then you have something that is more complex, right? So again, each and every state has a different probate process, right? So if you have an issue with the probate, you need to speak to an attorney where you live, right? And it also sounds like, Sandy B, when we talk about the probate process, I saw two good comments before I keep going because I'm thinking about what you just said. Yes, there's another reason Miss AKA Lady is on fire. Why a legal marriage, hallelujah,
yes,
is important. Yes, Sandy, make sure you say my favorite two quotes. Who is Troy? What is Troy talking about? Do you know?
Troy says that he enjoys when I mention these quotes. So one is, our lives are not fill in the blanks. So your scenario and my scenario may be two completely different scenarios. We can't just fill in a form and get things done. A lot of times there needs to be an understanding of the process. And even though in Florida we have what's called summary administration, which is a shorter administration, does not require an attorney. The
Mm-hmm.
process is streamlined and it's simpler. It's literally petitioning the court with whatever the documents are that are required. And then there's going to be a distribution. There's not steps in
It's like
between
do it
technically.
yourself. Yeah, do it yourself. Y'all
So
can go into the court with what they have, and yeah. Mm-hmm.
yes, you can do it yourself. But what I'm going to tell you is I've done a number of summary administration after someone's done it themselves,
Oh
because
Lord, yes.
most people don't understand that the court process is a couple of different phases. It's opening a case with the clerk, it's the processing of the case by the case manager, and then it gets to the judge. A lot of people think they file cases with the court and they just wait for the
It
court
is
to sign
done.
orders.
No.
We actually have to submit the orders to the court. We create the
Mhm.
order and the judge
Okay.
will sign if the
Okay.
language fits what's supposed to be there.
All right. So don't do
Um,
it yourself necessarily. Ah, my bad. Because I'm like, maybe some of the court administration, administrators, the people who work at the courthouse might help you file it, but you run that risk. I understand what you're saying. Definitely run that risk because we know the process, so it will seem like okay, A and then B and then C. But if you only think A and then you don't get what you need done,
yep,
now here we come. The attorneys come to help remedy what happened. So I hear you saying to B. So not necessarily it's easy peasy. You
yes,
still need to understand the law and what's required to have the administration, right?
right.
Where the judge decides who gets what goes smoothly. So again, that differs from state to state. So I saw two comments I want to continue with. Great. Thank you, Ezra. Ezra, the insurance broker on the super chat. Thank you. Ezra says we need this conversation. I appreciate that. Yeah, we saw the headline. We decided last week, we're like, Sandy, this will be perfect. Sandy was like, Sue, yeah, this is what I think.
Yeah,
So it is important that we are just talking about, especially we're going to get into what happens when you don't have a will, what happens when you have a will. We've had some of that conversation, but people I think sometimes have misconceptions. This pop culture, we see certain things in movies and we're like, oh, that's how I go. No, not necessarily. What was the other favorite quote before I move on? Go ahead.
man, Troy is gonna be mad at me because I forgot my own quote. I know that
Ah.
my second quote has to do with relationship. Your relationship doesn't entitle you to anything. Because a
Oh.
lot of times people think, oh, that's my I've had several situations. He's my boyfriend. We live
Mm,
together. That's
mm,
my girlfriend.
mm.
We've been, same-sex couple. We've been together for 20 years. Well, guess what? The court doesn't care how long you've been together if there is no legal relationship and if there is no document that says I want this person who's not my family to receive what I had, which means you need a will or a trust. So your relationship doesn't entitle you to anything in anyone's life. So you can't, as a wife, go and take money out of your husband's bank account if you don't have access to the account. So the bank is going to say you're going to need court paperwork, and you're going to say, well, but I'm his wife. Well, I'm sorry, wife, he didn't leave you as a beneficiary on this account, and your
Mm.
name's not on the account. So you're going to have to go through the probate court
Get the
process
court involved.
and get the court involved.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's a shock to a lot of people. Thank you, Ezra, and thank you, Troy, because a lot of people think they live with people for however many years.
yes,
If your name is not on the account, oh well. And besides that, beyond that, legal relationships is really what counts in
true.
these instances when there is no will, particularly. Thank you for that. I saw somewhere, oh, we're going to discuss this, Andrew. Andrew says, thank you again, Ezra. Says, I've been the executor of two wills. We're going to talk about that. In certain places in Florida, we call it the personal representative. In
Yes.
other states, it's called the executor of the will. Look at Andrew already doing homework. So we are going to talk about what that person does. So cool beans. Love the fact that you already know. Yes, I've gotten to the point where I don't feel, let me see. Saw a comment here about insurance policies. I thought I saw one. They asked if it's legal Zoom baloney. Hey, the last
Ah,
man in Jersey. I don't think we can comment on that. We're gonna leave that one alone. You're gonna have to
I'll
call it.
comment on the idea behind
Yeah.
doing it yourself. Because I will say that the legal Zooms and the other online softwares, some of them will have a feature where you can consult with an attorney. But the general concept behind some of these softwares online, and the things that you can buy at Office Depot, or just random stuff that you can create yourself, is that you're doing it yourself. But if you're going to do it yourself, you have to educate yourself first and understand what needs to be there. So to me, if you are going to take the route where you're going to want to create something on your own, please at least sit down and have a consultation. have an attorney evaluate your documents and give you some feedback to say, well, this is what your documents actually say. And then talk a little bit about what your needs are to make sure that your document satisfies your family circumstances, who you want to leave things to, the type of assets that you have, and maybe even the types of creditors that you have. Because in Chadwick Boseman's estate, we're going to see that the creditor piece, many people don't understand it because they keep saying the government took your money. No, the government didn't take your money. Government doesn't take your money like that.
Yeah.
There's a reason money is
people
taken.
money, the creditor who you owe. People think a lot of basically bills or
Yes.
IOUs go away with death. No, this is the American system. Those people gonna get paid. So
They're
we're
like
gonna talk
this.
about that shortly. Hey, yeah. Oh, he passed away. Can you pay me back what he was promised to pay back? And
All
we have a
day.
system that honors that, right? You just don't pass and then all of a sudden all those bills and all those creditors go away. It doesn't work like that. So, Sandy, Miss AKA Lady asked, can you handle any county in Florida? What's your answer?
Yes, I do. And it's so interesting that you asked that question because I want to give you a short little story. A lot of times attorneys will take cases, in various different areas. And because my partner is a traveling attorney and, I started to travel a little bit throughout Florida. So I started to learn how difficult it is because every single county, and I mean every single one, and every single judge within those counties does things a little bit differently. So what I will say is I generally do take cases throughout the state of Florida. At times, though, I will tell folks, your county is small, podunk. You might want to deal with the folks in your county unless you need an outsider. And I've represented folks as an outsider.
Listen, I've handled cases in certain parts of Florida.
Oh, yes.
Beyond them asking if I was the attorney and like looking at me like I was crazy when I'm like, here's my bar card. I'm coming in where the attorneys sit now, sir, Mr. Bailiff. Excuse me. Thank you.
How about the courthouse that looks like the church that has the 10 Commandments out front that I'm standing out front of? Like,
yeah, you're like, okay, we're in a different part of Florida right now. We're in a different part of Florida, Bible Belt, Florida, right? And I've handled cases where it would, in my opinion, depending on the case, depending on the county, help to hire somebody from that county. Like when you get into some of these real rural counties where the judges and the attorneys are friends and they play golf together and they maybe socialize, let's say, together.
Yes.
You better pay your money and find somebody local who knows that judge's, let's say, propensities.
Yes, that's a good word.
And knows how to, present the case, present the facts the way the judge likes it, so that the outcome, you can't guarantee nothing, but is more likely to go in your favor. But yes, certain counties, it doesn't make sense. Me as a South Florida attorney travel up there. I have homeboys in North Florida. I have homeboys, on the Panhandle side, and I'm like, hey, can you handle this for me? If someone has a call regarding a case over there, it doesn't make sense because just the culture of that courthouse, you got to know it, and they do view you, although they, they adhere to the law. They view you as an outsider oftentimes. Sure. So you come with your Miss Miami, and they ain't never seen a black woman blonde hair before.
Oh yes,
coming through. We want to be judged by obviously our argument, but sometimes there are other, let's say, cultural influences. I'll leave it there, Miss Sandy B. I don't know if you want to add anything, but it's very interesting that you asked this. Yes, Troy Holt says Sandy is the show enough truff. She knows her estate planning. Absolutely. Yes, Miss AK Lady says, I remember the lead attorney was talking about hiring attorneys outside of your area can be harmful at times. 100%. It depends on the case and it depends on the county. But oftentimes, it depends. I'll probably go as north as Orlando and be like, the temperament in the courtrooms are, similar, not really even similar, but I can adjust. Some of the small, like you have circuits in Florida where one court oversees like 4 counties because it's so small. So one judge determines every kind of case for like 4 or 5 counties, and that's a very powerful judge. So I would prefer looking at maybe co-counseling with somebody, bringing someone in on the case, and I don't mind recommending saying, you know what, this is the guy, this is the man for that type of case in that area, let's give them a call together, you know? So I want the best outcome for the client. That's how I look at it, Sandy B. I want the best outcome for who, you know, it ain't about me, it ain't about ego. Sandy B Law is here with me, guys. We're gonna get into Chadwick Boseman in just a little bit more detail, just a second. We're gonna talk a little bit more about that term executor. In some states, in Florida, we call it the personal representative. I just want to define terms since I brought it up earlier. Sunbreeze asked, could you talk about placing beneficiaries? I think this was the question I was looking for. Can you talk about placing beneficiaries on our bank institutions, our employer, whatever, benefit
Yes.
plans,
Yes.
insurance plans? Can you speak to this before we get into what is an executor?
Absolutely. I think that it's important for us to know that no matter what types of accounts we have, we need to find out if there is a way for us to leave a beneficiary or a legacy person or some form of designation on all of our accounts. Because what that does for you is that takes those accounts out of the probate assets and makes them non probate assets. Because again, remember, I said earlier, there are certain things that pass under operation of law, and there are things that have to go through the court process. So if you have a beneficiary listed on your bank account, on your investment account, on your CDs, your Robinhood, whatever it is that you have, your YouTube, you got to do it for as many accounts as you can. I'm going to tell you a personal story. When my aunt passed away recently, she did not have any estate planning. She didn't have a will, she didn't have trust, she had nothing. But guess what she did have? She had a life insurance policy with beneficiaries and contingent beneficiaries, and she had a bank account listing who she wanted to receive the money in her account. Guess what that is? Estate planning. Estate planning is a comprehensive process. It covers you having a plan in place for whatever it is that you own in your name only and where you want those items to go. And it doesn't always mean documents, because it's not about the documents, it's about the plan.
I love it, Sandy B. Sorry, I was reading the chat while you're talking.
I was like,
You're
where's
doing work
Suzette?
over here. Hit the like button if you're enjoying this type of content. I know we do a little bit more deep thinking, kind of, real life, what should I say, applications of serious topics. I hope you guys enjoy. If you enjoy, support the content. Like it, comment, and share. After the stream, go back and say, yo, very interesting. I didn't know this. I learned something new. It's important because when we do much more educational topics, sometimes they don't get a lot of love, even though I know it's doing work and helping people. So we're going to continue to do that, y'all. This is the SuzetteSpeaks show. I'm doing a quick reset. I see a few more people have joined. Welcome. If you're watching on Facebook, hit the like button. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button. I'm here with my special guest, YouTuber Sandy B. Law. She's talking about her experiences as an estate attorney, estate planning attorney. And we're talking specifically, since it was in the news, made big news about the settling of the Chadwick Boseman estate. Rest in peace, the Black Panther. Yes. And he did not have a will, and his wife got a certain amount, and other people, the creditors, people you owe, still get their money. We're going to talk about that in a moment. So definitely hit the like button, show some love, go over to her channel, Learn Biz, the podcast, go subscribe, and also to her other channel, Sandy B. Law. So you can check her out. Again, they do interesting discussions about entrepreneurship from like a firsthand knowledge. I love that. I love you guys' show, and I think more eyes need to be on it. So go check out Learn Biz, no space, BIZ, Learn Biz, the podcast. All right. Thanks, RM, for dropping it in the chat. So as we were talking about a few more terms before, I want to ask about Chadwick, because I know he did not have a will. Right. As I stated, there's one more person that oftentimes you hear the name, the executor of the will, or in Florida, we call it the personal representative. Can you explain, please, what that person does?
So this is an interesting thing because most of us don't understand this because we've never really seen what happens in this process. So a personal representative is the person that handles the final affairs. And there's two pieces to it. There's obviously the things that are going to happen in court if there is a court process, but there's also the other affairs that need to be wrapped up, right? Because when you have a will and you identify your personal representative, there are certain things that you've said in your will that you want them to do. You may want them to distribute things like your personal household goods and jewelry and those things. You may want them to sell property. You may want them to divide up certain monies. You may have those instructions in your will. And then what happens is you're going to the court to get the necessary orders that you need. Now, if there is no will, the personal representative follows what the state law says. So no matter what state you're in, if you're, in Florida, you have personal representative. If you're in other states, you have executors or administrators, and the state law will give information on what the responsibilities of the personal representative are and what are the things that the personal representative can do without court order and what are the things that the personal representative needs a court order to do. Example, a personal representative can't just open a safe deposit box, right? Because it is in somebody's name only on their date of death, unless they added other names. So they'll have to go to the court and say, hey, I need to do an inventory on this safe deposit box to figure out if there's a will in there or if there's other assets of value. And then, the court will have to determine whether or not they are assets of the person who passed away. The other thing that a personal representative does is identify who is going to be involved in the estate administration. If it's family, if it's other people who are named in the will, they're going to connect with those people to let them know, hey, I'm going to open the estate at this point in time. Personal representative is also responsible for checking to see if there are any outstanding creditors. They have to see if there's, IRS debt. They have to see if there are credit card bills, medical bills, and make sure that there's nothing that's outstanding that needs to be paid out of the estate if there's anything. Also, an important role of the personal representative is to make sure that if there's real estate, that any real estate is maintained and protected, that they secure any property, and that they make sure that they figure out what is it that makes up this person's estate, because they're kind of doing an inventory and being able to report to the court at the same time. And then they may also be responsible for handling monies in Florida, in a lot of counties, we have restricted depository accounts for the estate. So if that person had any liquid money, like money in the bank or monies that will come into the estate, we have to open an estate account at a bank. That account will be restricted because there are certain things that need to be done to determine if there are creditors and other people that need to get paid before any distributions are made. So the personal representative has an important job. They can't have a felony in their background. They can't be somebody who's mismanaging money or been in jail, recently for anything that has to do with fraud or money mismanagement. And they're also sometimes needing to be approved by other family members if they are the beneficiaries or heirs of the estate.
Awesome sauce. I'm running my
I know you're doing two things.
My toggling here. I appreciate you listing some of the very important facts about personal representatives, because people think because they're named personal representative, they can do whatever they want to do. Nope, doesn't work like that. So you got to be very careful if you're the executor. Yes. Again, there's a set of laws just for you. Yes. So even some PRs get an attorney. Some personal representatives have attorneys. Yes. So they are following the letter of the law, meaning everything the law lays out, so that they're not breaking the rules and not breaking the law in what they're trying to do, which is just carry out the will or carry out the administration and get named, as she said, name the folks who are supposed to be included. I'll give you a personal example. Someone called me on a question about a piece of property and it was this friend girl who's also an attorney was like, do you remember how to do this from my real estate law days? And she was just like, the house was owned by a dad who passed away. Before he passed away, the son of 4 children who was living in the house took out a second mortgage without the dad knowing.
What?
So took out a second mortgage, and then the dad passes, nobody's paying it, and the mortgage wants to foreclose on the property. Right. So the other siblings who didn't know, 3 other ones didn't know this person had taken out this mortgage, don't want nothing to do with it. They just like, let's sell the house and share it up. I'm like, it doesn't work like that. You're going to have to deal with it because you are an heir. This man died. He did not have a will. In Florida, the likelihood is that one of his children or all of his children, if he does not have a specific kind of will for or an estate or trust is the word I'm looking for.
Right.
Is all his children are now involved in his affairs. So she was basically asking, how do I get out of this? I don't want any part of this. And I'm like, not so fast. Like, you're going to have to, what we call in Florida, disclaim your rights. And that's a whole part of probate. She was just like, I just want to write the bank and say, I don't want to do this. I'm like, no, you're going to have to can do. It didn't want to believe me. I'm like, the cleanest way to do it is through a probate. The cleanest way to go is through the like I kept saying it like 10 times. And she kind of was like, well, can I just tell the bank? And what they sent her, Sandy, was more of like a consent judgment. And that's another part. I was like, don't sign nothing, get an attorney. Like I
Because
was
that's a judgment.
exactly, that's on your credit. And I was trying to tell her that. But again, not to go too deep, that was just one person example. And again, everybody's facts are different. So you can't go by what I'm saying as far as your own personal legal advice. You must contact an attorney individually to understand your specific circumstances. But yeah, it was a great conversation. And I was just like, can I please give you probate or something? She was like, no, I'll figure it out. And I was like,
That's
doesn't
how it
quite nothing.
is.
But people want to do it. People are cheap, or people not even cheap. They think I don't even want to be in this.
Yep.
I didn't take out no mortgage. And my daddy passed, and why do I have to be involved?
They don't realize it makes it worse. The
Exactly.
longer that you wait, it makes it worse.
So I keep trying to tell her, I'm like, well, I might actually from this conversation, I might go back and call her and be like, hey, or text her, did you get a probate attorney yet? Do you want me to give you one? Because I need to give you one. But anyway, doing work over here. Sandy B. Law is helping us understand probate and some of the terms, some of the processes, just to give you an idea of what it means. So this is often a cloaked area of law. People know
Yes.
you have to do something when people pass, but they don't really know what it is. So we're trying to educate y'all tonight. And I hope you're enjoying it. Hit the like button. So let's talk about Chadwick Boseman specifically. So what did you find out when you were doing your research about his estate, meaning all the stuff that he owned, all the assets he had
Right.
that needed to be passed on to whom is the question. Now, Chadwick did have a legal marriage. He was married. He
Correct.
didn't have kids. I saw Sunbreeze, excuse me, mention that. He loved kids and he did a lot for kids,
Right.
but he himself did not have any children. So tell us a little bit more about what you found when you were researching what happened to Chadwick Boseman.
So the biggest thing that stood out to me with Chadwick Boseman's estate is his estate started off with it roughly seeming over 3.8 million or so. And when I looked at the breakdown, and it basically ended up with about 2.3 million, which means the wife and the parents split the amount. It seemed as though the wife agreed to do so, but that doesn't seem like it was a requirement because, generally speaking, and I'm going to speak Florida terms, in Florida, if you have a surviving spouse and you don't have any children, generally speaking, your surviving spouse is going to receive whatever you have in your estate. Now, there's some nuance when it comes to people who come from community property states. And there may be some other issues if there are major debts or anything that have to be paid. But generally speaking, when you're married, what you have is going to go to your spouse. And then there becomes some questions if you have children and those types of things. And so the only time that I see money's going to somebody other than the spouse is an instance where there are children that are not of the marriage. But in this instance, when I saw parents, I was like, normally I don't go to parents unless I have no surviving spouse or no children, right? Or if I don't have both, right? If I don't have a surviving spouse and then I don't have any children, then I'm going to look up the tree, right? Because I'm going down the family tree to see who would be entitled. So in this instance, it seemed like Simone did something. Is it her name, Simone? Yes, it seemed like Simone did something that was either maybe something she had discussed with Chadwick, I may consider, or maybe something that she did because, you know, they were newly married. They'd, I think, been in a relationship for about a few years. I think they got together in about 2016, and he passed away in 2020. And they got married kind of like right before he passed away, in a sense. She may have,
Hallelujah. Sorry, you can see my
yeah.
face. Hallelujah. Get that paperwork. Y'all get that paperwork.
So
Ladies,
what I'm seeing,
gents.
what I'm seeing is basically the way that the split was done. It's whatever was left after things were spent. It was split because she agreed to do so. And then when I look at the larger number, he started at about 3.8 million, and I think he still may have some residuals that are coming in. One of the major expenses was probate. It was over like $900,000. And what people don't understand about the probate process is, depending on what state you're in,
Where
there
was he?
are
California?
California. So he was in
Jeez.
California
When
in terms
he
of,
passed in California.
yes. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, they were living in California at the
Oh, they had a
time
house
because
there.
that's the
Okay,
only
okay.
reason the
Okay,
probate
I was
would
like,
happen there.
dang.
And the one important thing is, I keep hearing people say that the government took all this money. No, he actually, if I'm not mistaken, had a business entity that had taxes due. I'm pretty sure he must have had his own outstanding taxes.
Wow.
Whatever bills were left remaining, any other expenses, attorney's fees, all of these things are going to deduct. And then if we're talking about probate, for example, here in Florida, if you have over a certain amount of money, the probate attorney is entitled to a percentage. The personal representative is entitled to a percentage. And I won't say entitled, that's the wrong word. May receive a percentage.
Yeah.
The personal
By
representative may
operation
receive,
of law, by law.
correct. The beneficiaries don't get really anything until we deal with certain issues. So here in Florida, we do a list. So I go through attorney's fees, I go through the personal representative compensation, reimbursement of estate expenses, any other expenses of the estate. I may also go to things like funeral expense reimbursement. If there are things like IRS debt, child support, alimony, liens on property, like if there's a mortgage, all of those things are coming off the
Still
top before
happening.
we get to the distribution.
Still happening before
Yes.
anybody gets no money out. Miss AKA lady
Yes.
say, I feel like I need to pay for this info. Thank you, sis. Appreciate the support on the super chat. She's like, listen, there's a lot I'm learning. I'm glad. If you are enjoying the content, learning from the content, hit the like button, share, subscribe. We
I
are
love
here
it.
with Sandy B. Law. She is breaking it all the way down, y'all. Chadwick Boseman's estate. I didn't know it was worth 3.8 million. But just
Yeah.
because you have assets valuing 3.8 million doesn't mean there are not these outstanding debts
Correct.
that must be paid. And I am sad. It hurt my heart to hear that the administration costs, the court costs,
Yes,
in Cali for that estate that size, 3.8, is $900,000.
and that was for his estate, because in Florida you may find similar numbers. Because I'll give you an example. If I have an estate
Is that
worth,
what they call the death tax?
no. So when it comes
Jeez.
to death tax, I think right now, what are we at? Maybe like 11 point something. Like
Yeah,
you're
you got
not
to pay that
taxable until you
too.
receive that amount.
Yeah.
One of the issues with the estate administration is people don't realize that there are fees attached to just the administration itself.
The
And
court
so
process costs money.
the court process costs money.
Yeah.
And then in terms of distribution, there is an order of estate payments. And it starts with the first people, right? The attorney got to get paid first. And
First
then
in
you're
line.
going first
Thank
in
you.
line. Then you're
Judge,
going,
my fees are
yeah.
for anybody else getting money. My money has to come off top. Let's go.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
wow.
the personal representative is an important person, because depending on how much work they do, let's say they're selling property, they're wrapping up affairs, they're doing final taxes, all of these things are things that they can get compensated for their work in doing the estate administration.
Wow.
So it can
and
add
the creditors are up there too.
Yes.
Creditors up there too. Wow.
And that's not to add other people that may have to be hired. Let's say they have to pay an accountant. Let's say they have to pay a real estate attorney. Let's say that they have to pay a mortgage. Let's say that they have to pay an attorney to settle some other lawsuit. Maybe he might need trademark attorney to do something, or he might have some copyright infringement or something else. All of those things are coming from the administration.
Wow.
And most people don't think that.
Yeah, especially I'm like, boy, when they say more money, more problems, that's a lot of money that you're going to spend just to have the personal representative or the executor be able to operate, to hire an accountant, to be able to do certain things and sell certain properties or whatever. Sometimes that stuff got to get sold to pay for the actual outstanding debt. Don't forget your creditors. Talk about that. Did Chadwick Boseman, I'm sure you said he had outstanding taxes. Were there other creditors of note that you saw?
The interesting part is, as going through so many different articles, it's like people just want to touch on the surface. No one's really giving you a good breakdown. And I think we'll find out eventually. But one major thing that I saw, there was something like 50 something $1,000 in some taxes. I want to say for a business entity, because, a lot of these folks, they work under some kind of entity that they have for themselves, because, they are the business when you're an actor.
Yes.
The other thing is, I know that there was a lot of reimbursements because his wife basically had some expenses for getting like a mausoleum, I think, wanting to get a crypt for the parents, some other expenses for the funeral, the attorneys, and all these expenses that came up. So I think all in all, when we get to this number that people see and they're like, the government took your money. No. What happened in this instance is there were things obviously outstanding that needed to be taken care of. There were arrangements that needed to be made because he obviously didn't have any prepaid arrangements or anything. I read in one article where they were talking about he thought that he was going to beat this. And so it was motivation for him to continue fighting. That's why you saw him doing all these films and really staying to it. So in his mind, he's not going to pass away. So this concept of preparing for his passing wasn't really something that was at the forefront. So him not having a will and those types of things, he probably had certain affairs in place, because clearly she had access to monies to do certain things.
Yeah, yeah.
So he probably had certain things, like maybe her name was on the account or she was a beneficiary or something, probably
Some
had some life
operation of,
insurance.
yeah, he probably put her
Yeah.
name, put her name. Isn't that like, oh, it's just ironic.
Yeah.
We want something to live for. We want to make sure we are focused on the positive, and we want to make sure we're not looking at what some would call the inevitable and
Yes.
saying, this is going to be my fate. I'm going to have faith. I'm not going to be sick. I'm going to get well. That's a very hard thing for people to process.
Yeah.
Looking at your last days or your end time here on earth, it is a very deep and traumatic, almost like way, state of mind.
Yeah.
So I can't blame him, even though other people might, you know, disagree and say, nah, he knew he was really sick. He had stage 4, whatever. I don't know, like just saying for argument's sake, he should have prepared. So it's a lesson. And yes, I saw you come in. Hey, Ace. I was like, did you discuss he doesn't have a will? Yeah, even though he was really not well towards the end. We saw the weight loss. We saw, looking
Yeah.
drawn and all that in the wheelchair. And then folks, you would expect, folks to address what it seems is, right in front of our face. But some people, denial and is a coping mechanism sometimes. And
Yeah.
I get it, but sometimes we have to really try our best to be brave and to
Yeah.
lay out our affairs so that others, people that we love are not necessarily caught off guard. And now I got to go through all this.
Yes.
Because I mean, we still got to go through the probate, but still, like, it's less complex once we know what you wanted and that our names were on many other things. Even with myself, I put my parents, I put my brother on most everything now, so that if anything, God forbid, happens, they will have access to everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't put anybody on my YouTube since we did the Kevin Samuel show. I need to put somebody on my YouTube. Like, now that you reminded me, I'm like, I gotta tell YouTube and these folks where I want and who I want to have access to my stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just made me think about some other stuff that I'm like, even if it's the simplest thing, putting somebody on your insurance, putting someone on your 401k, putting someone as a beneficiary of your whatever policies.
Yeah.
You need to be thinking about that, guys, even if it's not like a Chadwick Boseman situation where it's like imminent. You never got, life is crazy. The way things have been in the last 2 years, we should know that. So we definitely need to plan, especially if you have loved ones and family. You definitely need to plan.
And this comment is not so out of the ordinary. It's actually more common than you think. More of us don't have our affairs in order than do.
Right.
So,
And I saw the comment, Ace, is like, it seems odd that he didn't plan. But like I said, I'm trying to, is the benefit of the doubt. What happens if, this is a good question though, in terms of his mindset, because sometimes that's a very deep, and especially if people have been very successful and they have beat the odds.
yes.
I really can see someone believing like, nope, this ain't happening. Nope, I'm gonna push it till the end, and like it doesn't, literally they don't believe it till like right at the very end, which is unfortunate. But
Yeah.
neither here nor there. Miss Globe Girl, hey girl, nice to see you. What happens if the named executor, I think the court probably will appoint somebody else, or personal representative, chooses not to act in that capacity and do anything? So say your PR gets sick, or somebody now has too much stress or has so many other cases or whatever. What happens if they choose not to act in that capacity, Sandy?
So this is a really great question, because this comes down to, if you have a will, you decide. And even if the people listed in your will are not there, your will gives instructions on how the selection happens. But if you don't have a will, we're going according to state law. I'm going to speak Florida terms because every state is different. But according to state law, we look at, a majority in interest, saying, I want this person to serve. We look at maybe who's the oldest. We look at maybe who's the most qualified. Some people may be unqualified to serve because maybe they have a criminal background or other issues, or maybe have committed acts of fraud, or maybe they're subject of an investigation. So generally, I would say it's the family members that are going to choose by majority. Or we also can look at whoever's the oldest, because the statute kind of breaks down. I think it starts with oldest and then it goes to like majority in interest, etc. Surviving spouse also has like a preference and priority.
So yeah, lots of technical stuff. Like I said, we're giving you some general information, but in every state, and what we call jurisdiction, a state is like a jurisdiction, it has different rules. So
Yes.
we were talking what we know from Florida, but if you live in a different state, especially, you need to speak with an attorney from that state that gives you a clear understanding of those laws there, right? So tonight we're not giving any legal advice. We're just doing this for open discussion purposes, educational and entertainment purposes that hopefully will help you understand the process more clearly. But if you have a specific legal question for which you need specific legal advice, you must contact an attorney where you live one-on-one. Nothing here is intended to be legal advice. We're just doing it again for informational purposes. Discretion is advised. Okay, so make sure you know that. Sandy B, you have done such a great job. We have about 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes left. Want to make sure we touch on any of our topics that we haven't so far from the chat. You guys can leave questions if you want. I dropped the link. You can come up last few minutes and ask your questions. But about Chadwick Boseman, again, I don't want to speculate about why this person who seems so outwardly sick, especially towards the end, didn't do what he want, have his affairs in order, is what we like to say. Uh,
Right.
but what can we learn from him, Sandy B? I want to talk about pitfalls to avoid
Right.
when we're talking about this. Again, it's very uncomfortable for certain people to talk about passing and death. It's
Right.
like, nope, I'd rather not. I stick my head in the sand and whatever happens happens. But it's not going to be that easy for folks, especially if you have minor children and things like this. Whew, you creating a mess, basically, is what you're creating,
Right.
or leaving another person to deal with the complexities when there's nothing in place. So let me back up before we move off of creditors. Are they in that first tier of who gets paid? The attorneys,
Yeah.
who else is in that top tier before family even touches money?
So here in Florida, the major things is dealing with the estate itself. So you start with the parties of the estate administration, the attorney, the personal representative, anybody who contributed, if there's reimbursements, funeral expense, expenses of administration. So if you have to maintain anything or spend on accountant, all the things that have to do with the actual administration,
Get paid
those
first.
amounts get paid first. So it's either
Wow.
reimbursement
Yeah.
or payment outright. Then you'll typically look at things like debts that are associated with certain things. IRS debts, very, very heavy up top. Child support and alimony. Sometimes people think somebody passes away, well, everything dies. And that's not necessarily true, because if you have support that's in arrears, there is a possibility that that amount is going to come out of the estate. Because again, we're talking arrears, we're not talking future payments. So you have to keep that in mind. Also, if you have any kind of mechanics liens on property, let's say you decide you're going to sell a piece of property from the estate, all those expenses are going to come off of that. So you have to keep that in mind. Last, medical expenses. Those of you that may believe that if you get assistance from the government and you use something like Medicaid, that it's just free assistance. It is not. When you pass away, Medicaid is going to be the first one to file a claim against your estate for every single penny that they spent on your medical care. I'm going to repeat that. Medicaid, if you are receiving assistance, they will be putting their hand out with their statement of claim for every penny that they paid for your medical care.
That's for everybody.
All I know is every time I open an estate, the
Medicaid
first
is
person that I
existing
see, and them bills be like 50,000,
for
100,000,
all the care
150.
that you've ever received from the government. They get it back at the estate time.
So, and remember, Medicaid, a lot of times people are receiving it, as they get up there in age.
Oh
So let's
no,
say,
your expenses are going to be high because that's
yeah,
when you need Medicaid.
long-term
So they
care.
get that money at the end of it from your
Yep.
estate.
Yes.
Is this how
And
they're planning to make Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare solvent?
look, let me tell you something. I've never, and I've even had, I had an estate during
Teaching
COVID.
me here, Sandy. I didn't know that.
I had an estate during COVID. The medical bill, I believe it was almost $200,000. The person was in the hospital like for a second. That medical bill was like $200,000.
And they had to pay that out of the assets left
I think
from the estate.
we negotiated it down. We were able to get it down, I think somewhere like half, because we had enough
Wow.
in the estate.
Right.
But people always think, oh, the debts die. Oh, the credit card. I thought the credit card bills die when you
No,
die.
they're coming for their
No,
money. They're coming for their
they
money. Y'all
doing
put
this.
some on this super chat. We're doing work. We're doing work. Good information, helpful information for your life.
Yes.
To get y'all ready to apply some of it. Y'all put something on this stream, because we're gonna wrap it up. Y'all not getting no more for free. Y'all gotta call Sandy.
Look.
And make a consultation one by one. We're giving them too much, Sandy. We're doing too much.
Look.
Wow, I'm learning stuff. Thank you, Sandy B. Law. This is the Suzette Speaks show. We got about 10 minutes and we're getting some great information. I was just like getting ready to wrap, and I'm like, oh, now I'm curious about some other facts. But maybe we'll do a part 2, because there are always going to be, these type of estates where, again, without a will, and with a lot of unpaid debt, folks end up not getting what the 3.8 million, right? Like, gosh, I'm still mad about this California administration fee. Remind me not to live in California. That's crazy.
Another California death that I want to really find out about is Nipsey Hussle. I want to know how that whole estate was broken down, because remember, he was not married.
Right.
He had a couple different children.
Yep.
He, of course, had family members and things like that. And if he wasn't married, then we're looking at the children. Generally, I don't know about California, but generally here in Florida, we look at the children. And, there's a guardian for the children. So there may be somebody that's going to be responsible for their care. So I'm curious if he had a trust or something in place, because I know that he was doing some very different things, and there's assets and there's commercial property and there's all kinds of stuff. So I need to start digging to see if I could find information on that estate.
That's wild. I saw Sandy W. I think you had a question earlier before we wrap up. I forgot it. I know I'm moving through the chat kind of slow. Sandy W. says, I had a few elders in my family did give their kids whatever before they died. So, okay. Is it better? That was your question, to give people your stuff before you pass?
My very first case as a student lawyer in law school was an older woman who said, I'm giving everybody everything now. Rings, money in the bank, whatever it is. I don't need any of it. I need to give it to them now. And honestly, she still did a will. So I prepared a will for her, power of attorney, healthcare document. Because the beauty is, if you're not using it, if you're not holding on to it for any particular reason, yes, this is a very great way to support your family and give them the little things that you want. Now, this is within reason, because you got to be careful. There are laws in each state about gifting, especially when it comes to financials. And you know that they're looking at what you're transferring from your account to giving to people. So you have to keep in mind, there are laws in your state. You need to consult with an attorney about what the gifting amount is, the allowance per year, so that you don't go over that.
Oh, they think you're gonna give away everything so you don't pay the creditors, Sandy B.
Nah.
No, that's not how it works. In America, the creditors are still gonna get their money. You can't just gift it to your daughter and say it's not in my name. I'm sorry, you guys can't get back your money. This is what she's cautioning you about. Okay, good question, Sandy W. So within reason, also you may need to consult with an attorney to make sure you're doing it properly, because there are rules in terms of the amounts you can gift. Oh, y'all didn't know. Y'all ready? Put some on it on the stream, yo. We wrapping up. Let's go. Let me read a couple more of the chat. And then again, Sandy B, thank you so much for the Cash App. To Chef on the Cash App. Thank you so much for supporting the stream. We do it for the love, but it also helps when we get the support. Thank you so much on the Cash App for tonight's stream with Sandy B Law. Other thing you can do to show love, go to Sandy B Law's channel. Thank you, RM. Go ahead and subscribe. It's important. It means a lot to us. She's here doing some great work and giving y'all some good information. And she does that on her channel as well. So please go look her up and support and subscribe if you would. I'll get to a few more. My brother passed away, says Jeff, welcome, from lung disease. And we couldn't find a will. And I acted as the administrator, of his estate. And it was a back-breaking work. And I pray I never have to do it again. Oh, yes. I declined compensation?
Yeah. Sometimes it's worth it.
I was just about to say, if you don't know what to do, I don't know if it's too stressful, I'm not going to do it. But in my older age, Sandy, I was like, becoming a PR would be a good job. Like an administrator, what say you see them on a day-to-day basis though? Do I underestimate the workload?
So here's the problem with a PR position, even the attorney for the PR. I mean, we go through quite a bit because every case is a lesson. We're all different. Troy likes my statement. Our lives are not fill in the blanks. We're all very different and convoluted in the way that we hold assets and have relationships. So what tends to happen is the personal representative may not be the chosen person by the family. The
So they
person
won't fight you. They gonna fight
yes,
you with what you're doing. Okay, that's one.
yes.
Okay, what?
Sometimes people believe that the personal representative can touch everything, like they have access to the money, and oh, they're doing all these things, and it's like, no,
They
once
stealing the
it's
money. They still no.
no,
Can't do
that's not
that.
how it works. Now, does it happen? Yes.
They
Is
could
it
go to jail.
possible?
They could go to
Yes.
jail. Yeah.
However, they can go to jail. I have a couple of personal representatives that I've seen over the years in some cases that I went, and federal,
It's not your money.
criminal,
You going to jail. It's
state,
not your money. You gotta be
criminal.
very careful with that. Actually,
Yes.
maybe I won't think about becoming a PR. I hear what you're saying though. Each case is just unique. As you say, it's a teaching tool. No two cases. That's how I felt in real estate. No two cases are alike. You can't even use that toolbox like, oh, check, I've seen this already. Put it in this box now. No, so much nuance. Again, guys, we're speaking to Sandy B. Law from Learn Biz, the podcast where she is a co-host as well as her own channel, Sandy B. No period Law. Look her up. Go ahead and subscribe. Show some love. She is an estates and trust attorney in her real life. So she's here tonight just giving us a great overview on the probate process, what happens to your assets when you pass away, and some of the things that we believe everyday people do not know. And again, if you have an issue, you can call her if you're in Florida. If you have a deeper issue, you want to call an attorney where you live, okay? So as we wrap up, let me read a few more comments. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the support. Hit the like. Doing work tonight. I hope if you're watching Team Replay, hit the like button too. That includes you. I'm going to see. We can't answer this one because every country has different probates. So good question. Is Jamaican probate? I can't answer. I don't know.
So
my question. Go ahead.
Here's what I'm going to say about foreign probates. Just foreign issues, period. No matter what, whether it's estate planning or probate or guardianship. One of the things that I recognize is, my family's from Haiti, so we tend to have some Haitian, United States
land,
cases.
house bill, all that. Girl. Yep.
A lot of countries operate under certain constitutional law. I know in Haiti, when it comes to the division of property, there's constitutional law. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Jamaica has certain rules and regulations about who is to receive. But they also, I know a lot of attorneys that are licensed here in Florida and licensed in Jamaica as well, where there are certain things that have to be done on the Jamaica side and certain things that have to be done on the U.S. side. So you need someone who has both. If you can get an attorney that does both, yeah.
And there's several. If you need somebody like that, Ms. Girl, I know several. But yeah, I have a family friend who tried to fight her family down there for a house that was a nurse. She maintained. It was the family house, but this woman worked here in Miami and was paying all the bills, paying the light bill, paying all the taxes and all that. When grandma or whoever died, they were like, nope, this is our stuff. Yeah. And she spent years. It actually made her go crazy. She spent years. I was like, you can't beat them. They're there. She spent money out of her 401k for attorneys down there.
Yeah, I would have just left it for them.
I would have left it. I really, but she had invested, built on it. All the money that ever was needed for any type of repair, all, like I said, taxes and stuff, she had paid all of that, and those people took it from her, and it cost her a pretty penny. I was sad. I was just like, as a single woman, boo, you should have saved up that money and called it a loss, even though it was the principle. It was like, I had done so much for you that you should be, grateful, and you can't steal what's mine. You guys know that this is nope. They live there. So I was like, lesson, you got to know when to hold them and when to fold them. But she had a terrible time with them. And it actually, like I said, I think kind of affected her mental health. Yes, everybody talking about the Medicare. Listen, that was worth the price of entry, y'all.
Medicaid, not Medicaid. Sorry.
Medicaid.
I hope I didn't say Medicare.
No, I said it wrong. Medicaid. Jeff says, wow, I'm afraid to die now. No.
Don't be afraid.
Yeah, no, don't be afraid. That happened to old dirty bastard, really, ODB. They still had to pay his heirs.
They still did not pay his heirs?
Oh, to this day, still did not. Excuse me, I misread that. Whoa. Wow.
I need to look at his. Let me put
Yes,
that on
we
my
might
list.
talk about ODB next time. That's a very interesting case. Hey, Lando, nice to see you. Thanks for coming through. We're about to wrap up. Sandy B, I'm going to ask you for your last thought. When is Sandy coming back? Y'all ready? Yes, she's that.
We have a good time.
Yes, we definitely, probably maybe next month if you're open for it, my love. No pressure.
Okay.
Yes,
look up ODB.
Sandy B and SuzetteSpeaks. Sandy B. Law and Suzette Speaks doing the Lord's work, educating us. Thank you. I appreciate that, Ezra, the insurance broker. Hey, Andre, nice to see you. Yes, eat right, exercise, says Sunbreeze. Yes, socialize, be at peace with yourself because we're going to need to live long. XDMC says, I'm not leaving my family nothing. When I die, it's all going to be a sad day for you. Like, I'm tired of all of y'all. Fight over it. I'm done. But
Look.
listen, I've seen families. I mean, when they say it can definitely tear apart families.
Truth.
Who's living at the family house versus people get very. I've known people I went to high school with. The sister stole the literally. I'm not talking too specifically, but took possession of the house, and her brother was out of luck.
Yeah,
I was just like, if he would have told me, I was like, you could fight for that, but
true.
Based on their religion, I think they are Jehovah's Witness or something. I don't want to get too deep, but bottom line, it was like,
Yeah.
That's a big part of your inheritance, bro. Don't, but bygones be bygone. He has, bounced back, successful, married, got his own place and all that, his own house and all that. But it was touchy. It was touchy for a moment. I was just like, ooh, it hurts. And so when this happens, when the passing happens, again, to try to mitigate some of the confusion, it is much better to have a plan in place. Hey, Miss Creative, the Miss Creative. Oh, thank you, Doug, on the super chat. They call it Medi-Cal in Cali. Okay, I didn't know that, Sunbreeze. Thank you. Yes, all of this can make you ill. Actually, no, the fighting. Okay, I get your point of what I just talked about. Yes, fighting with people will make you lose your mind. And especially when you're just like, I mean, she was spending money, attorneys overseas. I'm like, you can't win. You cannot be there 24/7. Then the attorney charging you more. And this, like it was so confusing. And she was like, how do I get out of this? I'm like, cut your losses, really. Save your money up. You're going to be retiring soon, all that. Anyway, Thank you, Doug, on the super chat, supporting the content as always. Thank you. My brother says, join us in the morning podcast. Are you going? Oh, he's over there with you?
Yeah, Doug comes to us. So we do the morning on Tuesdays at 7:30, and then on Fridays we do 12 noon. So we try to catch either you're on your way somewhere or you're on a lunch break.
Just listen while you I like.
Thank you, Doug.
Like the morning shift. Okay, I love it. Thank you for that, Doug. Appreciate the tip as well as the generous donation. Thank you so much. Here talking Chadwick Boseman's estate, lessons that we can learn. And I'm going to ask you as we wrap up, Sandy B, I guess the takeaway I want to know is what can people do to really, prepare and to protect really their assets. Y'all hit the like button. We're doing work over here. Yes. So what advice in general, informationally speaking, can you give folks just to be more conscious of how they can ahead of time protect their assets? It is a hard thing sometimes to think about. No one wants to think about death. Everybody thinks they're going to live forever. Right. But as we know in life, that's one thing that's always there: death and taxes. They say that's how it goes. So what can we do? Final takeaways just to think about as food for thought in terms of protecting one's assets. Thank you again, Doug. Appreciate you. Thank you so
Doug.
much.
I want to start with the most basic thing that every single one of us can do right now. Write a list of all of the accounts that you have, every single one, and identify who your beneficiaries are for those accounts. Then take steps to get beneficiaries listed on all of your accounts. So if you have some that are missing, go and check with that, because you need to go into your bank and speak to someone. Usually they have a form for you to fill in. And please do not sleep on the contingent beneficiaries. So it's not just setting up a beneficiary, it's thinking about the fact that, well, what happens if that person passes away? Because if they pass away and you don't have anybody else, guess what? That's now a probate asset. So you want to make sure every single account that you have has a beneficiary. You want to check on your digital assets. If you are a YouTuber and you get money from YouTube, who is going to receive that? Do you have somebody listed as your legacy representative or what? I forgot what YouTube calls it, but YouTube has a process for this. And we talked about that in the Kevin Samuels video. So you can go back to that one.
Go back and watch what happens to Kevin Samuels' bread, his assets. Yes. Go back. Sandy B. Law did a great job with that show. Keep going, Sandy. Sorry.
And the other major thing I would say is please understand that estate planning is not about pieces of paper. So it's not about the will, it's not about the trust, it's not about power of attorney or healthcare documents, not about the deeds. It's about what is your plan. So if you can take some time and say to yourself, let me write out some things that I own and who I want those items to go to. And once I've done that, then I can identify what steps I'm going to need to take. I have a freebie on my firm's website. I leave it there all the time. People never use it. And I'm like, hey, it's there. I have a questionnaire that I use with my clients. I call it my estate plan checklist because basically it goes down the list of all the information you need to gather so that we can at least have an initial conversation about your estate. And the beauty of it is it allows you to identify all your assets. It allows you to list the people that you want to serve as your representative for your estate, as your agent for your power of attorney, as your trustee for your trust, if you're going to get one of those. But all of this is organizing your information. So beneficiary designations, check on your digital assets, and identify what your intentions are, what it is that you want to happen in your world if something happens to you. And if you do those basic things, you at least have a starting point completed. And then I'll always tell you, consult with your professionals, your attorney, your accountant, your financial advisor. Those are three very important folks that you should consult with.
Man, Sandy B, you trying to get my life together over here. Thank you. I know everybody enjoyed this because I most certainly did. There were definitely so many nuggets and takeaways for me. I definitely need to get on my YouTube assets like now. This is like the second or third reminder that we know better and we should do better. So definitely think about that. I'm gonna go to your website and use your freebie. It seems like you talking to me. I'm like, oh, okay. I preach this, but I better kind of get myself in order. Y'all, thank you so much for all of the support throughout the stream. But if you enjoy Sandy B Law, the best thing you could do for her is go over and subscribe. Check out her channel. Check out both her channels, Sandy B Law, no period. And then you also want to check out Learn Biz, B-I-Z, no space, Learn Biz, the podcast. Is it all together?
Learn Biz and then the podcast are separate.
Yes.
Yeah. Just like it's like Sandy B Law.
Okay, just want to make sure everybody knows. Y'all see the Cash App, y'all can support. This is just such good information. I just love, we do this in service, but if you get something from it, you should support the content because again, there are a lot of people that put up a lot of stuff, but we're trying to provide what we think is a healthy discourse, useful information, ways that we can impact people and people's lives. So we've done that, I think. So if you think so, please support. Appreciate it. Sandy B left us with some good takeaways. Let me tidy up the chat here, see if there was any final comments. Appreciate y'all supporting the content. Appreciate y'all in every way. I love it. She's like, them teeth. People will take your assets, man. At the end of the day, if it's no paperwork, especially if it's in other countries, woo. Miss AKA Lady says, death can really destroy families. Wills can be an act of love. Because that's the thing. We think we bring it on death by talking about it. We're like, no. If we talk about it, it's going to be coming to me. I don't want to fill out the paperwork because here it comes. No, it's an adult thing to do, a mature thing to do.
Yeah.
Yes, Ace. Be watchful for vultures. Many want to befriend you for the purpose of you putting them in your will. Back in the old days, people knew. Yes, D. How are you? 038. Living wills can be so easy to create. Yes, also consult professionals if you need help. Yes. Oh, thank you, Miss Globe Girl on the super. Okay. Thank you so much. Showing some love tonight. No comment, just love. No question, just love. Always here supporting, sis. Thank you so much for the super chat. I'm glad if you enjoy the information that you gave back in a way. Thank you so much for your generosity and supporting the stream because we do it for love. But again, this is our part-time job, Sandy. People don't think we...
We had a full day of legal lawyering all day.
Listen, I had a long day today. That's why the time got pushed back a little bit. I was like, Sandy just got home. We're going to be a little bit late. Love you. And she was very, very flexible. Thank you, girl. And I was just like, people will be okay because we have other lives. And this is something we're doing because we're passionate about it.
True.
So on days like today when we had technical shit today, we could just share. Her laptop was like a yay, then it was a nay, then we had her on a desktop, then it was a nay, and then she now back on the laptop, then it was a yay. And by that time we was talking and the lipstick was coming off and we had to repowder.
Look,
This
it's
is like
real.
we both were like, this is about to be the bomb stream with all these kind of like technical difficulties, but we let you know because again, I'm like, it's for the love. Let's go. As like Sandy, we still got to do it. Like we're a little late, but we're still gonna do it.
Truth.
And no matter where you are on the prepared for this type of thing, I know this information has served well. Thank you again, Miss Globe Girl. Appreciate you supporting the stream. Shout out to the chat. Good questions. Yes, I'm gonna get my life together. Thanks, Sunbreeze. So I would love you to see you get your life together. Thank you, Sunbreeze. Yes, D, the information is priceless. You can't even really put a price tag on it. It goes, oh, actually, you could, because the consultation with Sandy gonna cost you.
Oh, it's gonna cost you.
Yay, thank you. Oh, Andrew, life is a serious and like, oh, this is a song. Life is serious. This is Mr. Nickel Vicious. I don't know if I can't think of the beat to it. Like it's a Dougie Fresh song. Life is serious, continuous, and dangerous. Yeah, it's I know the song, brother. Appreciate you. I can't think of the beat right now. I'm like, I'm hungry. I'm gonna go grab something real quick. Said it before it's too late. Can you believe my trainer made me do 100 burpees because I was 10 minutes late? And he told me every time I'm late now, I have to do 10 burpees for every minute. And I wanted to fight him. And I'm not even gonna lie. My lunch break was me in my chair. I was like,
I'm so done.
I was like, them damn burpees. Them burpees have me down here about to lay out. But thank God for, perseverance from, that's what I'm saying, long day from, 7 in the morning training to now. It's because we love it, y'all. It's because we want to, create community and give back from our expertise. Sandy giving super chats and she the guest.
Gotta get a
Sandy, that's not how it works. That's not how it works, sis. Thank you.
You are appreciated because you support me so much as a new YouTuber. I appreciate it. And I love coming on here. Your chat is always lit.
You are the best. Thank you. Listen, that's a classy chick, y'all. Thank you so much. That's unnecessarily, but as they say, when people give it, from the love out of their heart, just to receive it. And I appreciate you, sis, always. In real life, you know how that goes. So I really appreciate you coming on and with the strength of your expertise. We're doing work here. And like I said, some of these topics are not going to be as well watched, what they should be, though they should be. But we gotta, hold our mission, our ground in terms of who we are and why we're on this platform. So I'm grateful for the super chat from Sandy. But y'all got to go and subscribe now. Make sure you go to Learn Biz. Thank you so much, Sandy, for your time alone, but for your generosity as well, sis. Thank you very much. That means a lot. Yes, good vibes, everybody. It's serious. Our cantankerous. I know it's a little vicious song, but I can't think of it's on a Dougie Fresh beat. Thank you. Andrew know how to get me in the dance hall mood. So I'm like, okay, let me think of the song real quick. But again, we hope you have enjoyed this overview and look at the Chadwick Boseman estate with none other than my special guest YouTuber, Sandy B. Law. We encourage you to go see her channel, Learn Biz the Podcast. Once again, Sandy B. Law. Once again, we have a Patreon. Y'all know how it does. We do. Sandy, I gave them a little behind the scenes of me out in the streets in Miami.
I saw some things.
Just a little bit. I'm not going to do everything for everybody. Some things we have to keep private as professionals. Actually, I saw this, and I'm going to let you go. I saw this Instagram of a lady. I don't want to call her name because I don't want it. She's a Rhode Island state
You're
house
talking about the state senator who's twerking?
State senator twerking.
Woo child is all I can say. Woo child.
I got to pick my topic, y'all. I won't see you Thursday. I'm moderating a debate Thursday. But I will see you guys Saturday at 12. But I've been going back and forth on topics for Saturday. And I'm just like, the twerking state senator, like I'm all for when I'm on vacay, I'm on vacay. I know y'all think I'm an attorney and stuff, but I have a whole nother lighthearted, like just laughter, love, and easy, vibes side. And that's why I post some of that stuff. So you guys can know I'm not serious all the time. I really, this is like a mask we take off, like, okay, done. And now I can go just be regular and hang out. But yeah, I don't know how I felt about that. In parts of me, I was kind of like freedom, but she put it on her TikTok. So she knew it was going to be public. I thought somebody maybe had outed her or, you send your group chat something and somebody get mad and now the group chat is on public chat. What were your first initial reactions? I'm gonna let you go.
My first reaction, so first I didn't realize it was state senator when I first saw the video, so I was just like, I was already like, okay, why am I seeing this on my TikTok?
Exactly.
But then it was like, then I realized who it was, and I was like, oh, so that's what we doing now. Oh, okay. I mean, I'm not going to judge anybody for whatever it is they choose to do on their own time.
Right.
I think we should have our freedoms to do our own thing. I just be trying to understand, like, why do we have to share all the
Yeah.
things? Do we
The
have to share
cheeks.
all the
That's the
things?
thing. The cheeks. Thank you, Miss AKA lady. And it was a little slow motion. Like I
Oh,
was
I
like,
mean, she was getting, I can't do
aw.
that. She was getting it, but I'm like, ma'am,
It's a little bit
I
much.
don't
It was a little
understand.
bit much. I'm just like, again, you have to have a certain standard. And
Oh,
what you
I
do on your
can't.
personal time, I really don't care. But you made it public and it's like a kind of thing now. Doug says, check your Cash App. Oh,
Oh, Doug, don't make me cry today, because I
we got
truly,
love in this,
I
man.
appreciate Doug so much, because sometimes Doug is the only one on with us on occasion, right? And
Oh,
it's like, you know what? I love it because he engages with us. We continue to spread the content. I'm glad we're still getting replays and people are still receiving the content. We're over 100 subscribers at this point. I think
yay.
we're like 117 or something. So
Yay.
it's coming along. I mean, we have a lot of things that we're working on to kind of broaden our scope, but I so love folks like you and you Suzette and Doug. I can't thank you enough. I cannot thank
Listen,
you enough.
this
Thank you.
is super important, and we acknowledge folks that support us. Thank you,
Yeah,
Doug. Always
I
is here.
appreciate
My
it.
Miss AKA lady Ace Butterfly. I can't start calling names because then y'all gonna be mad. Sun Breeze, y'all know who y'all are, and I really really
Yeah,
appreciate it. Same thing. If you want to help them get their watch hours,
thank
sometimes if you just
you.
play it, you don't have to be watching it, guys. So if
Yeah,
you go over on the Learn Biz podcast and the podcast and just play it, leave your phone on, go do what you wanted to do while you're playing basketball or while you're doing whatever on the bike.
yeah.
It is important because that helps us. Though that first 1,000 is the hardest thing.
It's
That
rough.
as lead attorney would say, that all that matters is 1,000 subscribers. But
Yeah.
not to lose heart. I want to encourage you because it is rough. Some of us get a little break here and there. Hello. But that first 1,000, even
Yeah.
Lee talks about that. Getting to that first 1,000 was like, oh my gosh. And
Well,
then when you
Suzette,
finally,
we're not the twerking entrepreneurs. So,
no, we
if I
what
was the
y'all want me to
twerking
twerk for
on
the 1,000? Then I'll have 10,000 people like, oh yeah, Suzette the twerking attorney. Like, give me a ring.
Oh, yeah.
Like, people do it for the views. Doug says thank you.
Yeah. Thank you,
Oh,
Doug.
Miss
I so
AKA lady
appreciate
says one
it.
more stubby to the list. Thank you, doll. Yeah, every little bit counts. It's sometimes, we get discouraged, and even myself, I was just like, guys, show me a sign if I should be on this YouTube because this is gonna take a lot of energy and stress. Like I was talking to my brother about it. I'm like, yeah, it is like a second job in a
Yeah.
sense, so a part-time job. So when we get the love, when we get the support,
Thanks, Miss
we
AKA lady.
thank you so much. Doug says, yes, the content is excellent and very informative. So we told you about, yeah, slowly but surely, Ace. I'm trying not to look at numbers anymore because I get frustrated. I'm like,
Oh, it's coming.
but yeah, that's why I was like, you know what? You can't sometimes go around the process. Just
Yeah.
keep doing you. Just keep doing you. Put out what you would
Yeah.
want to watch. Put out what you would want to listen to. Elevate the hopefully the community
Yeah.
in what you're doing. Of course, you got to keep it kind of edgy. People got to be interested in the topics and a
True.
little pop culture here and there.
Yeah.
But it's important that you try to maintain your frame because this place will have you chasing all kind. Even the
Yeah.
McDonald's baby mama. No knock to anybody who did it. I just didn't have time to prepare it. Like
Man,
I saw the story right as it dropped, and I was like, I gotta do a show on this. And I just didn't
my
have time.
favorite was my Sean Denise. She had me dying for
Sean
like
Denise is
days.
best.
I'm like, oh
Sean
my
Denise is
gosh.
the best. Yeah. Oh, Miss Glow Girl says, yay.
Oh,
Another
thank you, Miss
sub.
Globe
Y'all, no,
Girl.
we're not gonna
Thank
do no
you.
twerking attorneys. No, Doug. That's no, no.
Look at the
We let
popcorn.
we leave it to the state senators apparently. But yeah, all of it was like a little bit much. And I was like, I
Oh
wonder
yeah.
if Rhode Island, that's a very conservative, like, I mean, am I wrong? The politics to me would seem to be pretty conservative.
I mean, her commentary was that, hey, I'm currently in position and I'm running for reelection. So miss me with all everything that y'all are saying is what she said. Miss me with that. So
Oh,
I
so
was
she
like,
was
oh,
working for the dough. Oh, RM, I didn't know that. Just my little channel that could is all about 1950s housewifery and retro sensibilities. If anyone care, oh, RM, I didn't
yes,
know you had like an active channel, girl.
she does. I'm subscribed to her channel. I
Oh, am
love
I
her
not subscribed
stuff.
to
It
RM?
takes you back in time to a
Wow,
non-twerking
simpler. time when women were at home.
Yes.
We're
They
not
were
even gonna get
twerking at
started.
home
Listen, I
in
might
the
have to do
boudoir.
Saturday. Was it better when we was at home? Was it better when we listen? There's so much stress that goes on. I'm just, if you pay your bills, if you were staying sane, it's still nice to people and trying to still make the best of your life. Shout out to you. This life will take out, the wind out of your sails every now and then. Get punched in the tummy by loved ones, friends, and all. And you got to keep going. You got to keep building and stay focused. So we appreciate all of y'all who support us here. Appreciate the encouragement. Yes, Michonne will make you choke on your coffee. Yes, her
Yes.
commentary is hilarious. Shout out to her. She had like a couple of shows that had a well over tens of thousands of
She's
views. I was
killing it
like, look
over
at
there.
Michonne, get it, get it,
Yeah.
get it. And again, you might have 100,000 views on a video and only still have a certain amount of subs because
Yeah.
everybody who watches the video don't sub. So I got to remember that the content is still touching people,
True.
whether your subs move or not. Lee would say, don't watch that, Suzette. Just keep making make stuff, and people will find you. I did not know RM exactly. Like I should know that.
Yeah, her channel is really
Yes,
cute. I
definitely
love
will
like
check you
all
out,
of it.
RM. Appreciate y'all. Well, anyway, let Miss Sandy Law. Hold on, Miss Sandy Law. I'm gonna tell you good night. But thank y'all, everybody. I will not see you Thursday. I will see you Saturday. Appreciate the love and thank you for watching. All right, see you soon. Take care. Have a good night.
Thank you.